Hey, today's video is going to be a little bit different because today I'm going to be sharing with you my origin story. Now, it sounds dramatic. You know, superheroes have those origin stories, right? How Superman got to Earth from Krypton, got his superpowers. It's nothing that dramatic, but it is going to be what led me to this point. The mistakes that I made, pitfalls that I made, triumphs that I had, lessons that I learned, and how I got here. So I know a lot of you know who I am, you know what I do, and of course a lot of you don't. So this is just going to be my story, and I'm going to share it here, and it'll stay here, and I'm going to do this uncut. I'm not going to edit it. I'm just going to throw it up, so whatever comes out. Now, it's not scripted, but I do have notes, so I can there's certain things that I definitely want to talk about. So I was born in the Midwest, born in a little town called Ravenna, Ohio. Pretty amazing childhood. I had two great parents, very middle class, you know, all American family. And I say this all the time, but I was a chubby little kid, and I was. I know a lot of kids get picked on for that sort of thing, you know, for being a little chubby, but I was the class clown. I took on that persona, I guess, you know, now I realize more as a shield, and I was the kid who would make fun of himself first before somebody else even could. So, you know, I had that persona all through school, you know, was just something you put on as a mechanism, you know, because even from that early age, you know, self-confidence for me was always, you know, people will find that hard to believe, especially now, but, you know, it was at that age. And so, you know, anything that makes you different is always the thing that, you know, you try to protect from being attacked. So, you know, I'd always make fun of myself. I liked school, but I was never a star pupil. I mean, I did okay. I did well, you know, but I wasn't, you know, anything great in all of that. And, you know, I just always somehow knew, you know, that I was going to do something that was going to be different. You know, I wasn't going to do the normal thing in my life. So always on diets as a little kid. I mean, you know, little kid doing Weight Watchers, little kid doing this, just, you know, so I had that thread, you know, going through my life too. But so ever since I was very small, 4, maybe 5, you know, I knew I wanted to be an entertainer, but I didn't know what. I loved people like Johnny Carson and Dean Martin and Don Rickles, you know, but I couldn't really sing, obviously. And, you know, I mean, I was semi-funny, but I wasn't, you know, a comedian. So I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. But a couple of really big things happened to me. And when I was 6, and I wrote this down because this is really an important turning point for me. And again, 6, very young, but first thing that happened to me that was a huge influence in my life was seeing David Copperfield, you know, the magician on TV, Vanishing in Airplane. And so, man, from that point, I wanted to be a magician. So that was going to be my entree into the entertainment business. I was going to do it as a magician. So at 6 years old, I knew that was it. You know, even though I already knew I wasn't going to be, you know, the guy with the wind blowing his hair and the hot girl. That was not going to be me. But, you know, I definitely knew that it was going to be something to do with magic or being a magician. And that was the first thing. So that ignited a passion in me, you know, that just went for decades after. But the second thing was more profound. And definitely as my life went on, these sort of things happened to me. But it was a Saturday afternoon. It was in the middle of the summer, and I was in the backyard. We used to live in used to be an old fairgrounds. It was now like a, you know, housing development. But you know, we had a pretty good. I think we had an acre almost of property. So I was sitting in the backyard, and I had what I always call this the experience, or the first experience. So I was sitting there, and I felt this immense sense of just connection, of all of a sudden, from feeling, you know, even at 6, stressed. I was always, you know, that was, I don't know, born in me, I guess, but I was always stressed out. But that feeling disappeared for a minute, and I just felt connected, like I belonged to everything. Like everything was one. And I realized even at 6 that there was something more than what, you know, was out there, that more than what I could realize. And it happened fast in a minute or two, and then it was back to normal. But those little flashes, now I realize are nudges, universe nudges pushing you in the right direction. The wind blows you through life if you let it, but most people fight against it. And, you will be moved, through this. But so those sort of things happened to me for years and years after that, just little things moving me in the right direction. We're usually so self-involved that we don't notice. And it probably happened to me other times, but at that time I was aware enough that for some reason I got it. So I knew, right, that there was something else. And I just felt this connection to everything, to the universe. So as I went forward from that point, I knew two things for certain. I knew I was gonna be a magician. And I also knew that the Midwest wasn't the place I was gonna be. I always felt out of place. So I knew, I wanted to be California. That's where I wanted to go. So I knew those two things: magician, California. I didn't know anything else, but I knew that's what was going to be the goal. So I set those goals pretty early, and that's what I knew I wanted. So back when I was a little kid, I'm in the same area of time, and I've talked about this before, but this is also true. And was a huge influence on me. And it sounds ridiculous today, but I was obsessed with all those 80s shows, Dallas and Dynasty and all those super rich people, and all the power and everything. And even as a little kid, it's so weird to think of like a little 6 or 7-year-old kid, watching Dallas and being, thinking JR was the greatest. When, like the character who's the worst, you gravitate towards those. But, now you look at those shows now, I wouldn't take $10 million to be a Ewing family member, because look at their life. It's like, nothing but heartache. It's, murders and kidnappings and, bombings, and somebody goes blind and the twin sister comes. It's like, or the evil twin. So it's like one thing to another. And I think the reason those shows were so popular is people really liked, wow, rich people are miserable too. I think that's what it was. I think that's the secret behind all of those shows. They like seeing rich people so miserable. But those shows and all the glitzy 80s, because I grew up in the 1980s, the Reagan era, and it was big hair and big money, and everything was bigger, larger than life. And I grew up in the middle of all that when everything was exploding. So those things meshed in my brain somehow and flipped a switch. And I thought, okay, I got it. So being rich will solve any problem. That was somehow ingrained in me. And again, I've talked about this too, but you are programmed in your subconscious the first 7-8 years of your life. And so things that sound ridiculous and idiotic now, you have to remember and look at them from the mental capacity of a 6 or 7-year-old. You're not looking at things logically like an adult, but things happen. It's like when you're told you're not good enough or things like that. As a child, you take that in, and then later it becomes a pattern in your life. So I thought, that's it, being super rich. That is going to be what I need to be to solve any problem, right? And I thought that for a long, long, long time, years and years and years. So I started doing shows, little shows here and there, but I was obsessed with magic. I lived it 24/7, and it's all I did. I mean, I became pretty good at it. It was my life. I was reading, I was learning, I was practicing, I was showing my mom trick after trick. I didn't do anything else. I didn't really go out and do anything else. Everything stopped for me with that. It was like finding something that, it was like opening a magic book and just boom, that's it. That's what I want to do. So it consumed me for years and years and years. It took me all through high school, and I did okay, like I said, but and I got into college and all of that, but I always knew this, it felt so constrictive. And I knew that for me, for what I wanted to do, this was not the path for me, and my dad had paid for college and, everything ahead of time. And, but I was sitting there one day and in class, and I had another experience, and I just knew that was it. I knew this was not for me. So that was it. I never went back, and And I'm not proud of it now, but I was so afraid to tell my dad. I would get up in the morning and I'd go rent a hotel room and go to sleep. And they didn't even know, they didn't know till they got the incompletes in the mail that I had even, I was such a wimp that I didn't even want to, tell anyone. But that pushed me immediately to have to prove, hey, I want to be a magician. So I gotta prove it. So I went on the road almost immediately. I did a summer under a big top, under like with a touring show, carnival show, where I did a illusion act, and I did a season with the circus, and it was an amazing experience. We used to do 7 shows a week, 7 different towns. We would do 15, 20 weeks in the spring, and we do 5 or 6 weeks in the fall. But it was amazing. And I learned that business, and I was really fascinated with everything about it. So I ended up buying the show, and I actually ran that for a few years where, I had this touring indoor circus. We had a little elephant, and we hired different acts and animal trainers, and I did a big illusion act. So I did that for a while, and then I sold that because I knew that wasn't going to be my, destiny either, but it was just a vehicle to get me moving. So I did the carnival, like I said. And then, so I ended up stopping in the spring, and I had some summer dates by myself doing my illusion act. So I happened to meet Don Rickles and the Smothers Brothers. They were doing something in Miami. So I met Don Rickles, and he came to my show. We talked afterward. He was amazing. Always the ones that are famous for being nasty, like Don, Joan Rivers, they're always the nice ones in reality. You realize later. But so we talked. I ended up doing some work for him as an opening act. And from there, that chance meeting that never would have happened, that push, that, oh, this isn't for me. And, and pushing me into that stream, that then meeting, Don Rickles. So that was definitely a push in the right direction. So then I went to the next phase of my career, which I say is my opening act years. So I opened for Don, and I opened for Joan and Dionne Warwick, Shaka Khan, and, the list goes on and on and on. And, one person recommends you to the other, and that goes on. But that wasn't fulfilling either. Now, I was making money. I was doing great that way. Things were in the things that I wanted, all the goals I was checking off, but I wasn't getting, any sort of happiness or joy from it. So that was making me realize, something is not quite right here, because I was accomplishing my dreams. Everything on paper that I wanted to do, I was now doing, right? I was making that money. I had moved to California then, but I was miserable. So my goals, meeting my goals isn't making me happy. Something's wrong here. So everything, every time I would accomplish the thing I thought would make me happy, it did, but only for a few days. Nothing ever stayed long term. That feeling, the knot in the stomach came back pretty quick, sometimes right away. So I was doing a big illusion act, the lady floating in the air, the levitation, the sawing a lady in half, the big stuff. And I was doing that. This is after I sold the circus, and I had a semi full of equipment and, girl assistants and everything else. And then I was doing a spot gig in Las Vegas, and I was working with Gladys Knight, and Gladys Knight had to do an extra week, and they asked me if I could stay, but they asked if I could do a mentalism act. Now, I had always played around with that, and I'd never done it in public. It's much scarier because, with the magic act, you're hiding behind props and smoke and girls and everything else. But with this sort of act, it's just you and it's the audience. So it's a much different dynamic and scary, thinking of doing that. But again, I pushed myself and I did it. And from that point on, I sold everything else because I realized that I had been doing the wrong thing. I wanted to move into that area, because I'd always been obsessed with the mind. But more so since I started having my own flashes, like I told you about there. So I sold everything and became a mentalist. And the next time I worked with Dionne Warwick, she didn't know what to make of me, because remember she did the Psychic Friends Network. So then she thought I was completely, and she was very nice to me, and she was famously not to other people, but she was very, very nice to me. So I started doing that act, and I realized I love this. So I was going all over the world. I could fly anywhere with, a couple cases instead of this huge show. So I did that for several years. I met Gavin MacLeod from the Love Boat, and I started doing cruises. And I was doing Princess, which is the Love Boat. I was doing Crystal, which is one of the top cruise lines in the world. Norwegian, I did the Illusionarium show for a year and a half on there. And I really fell in love with that. And I was seeing literally Iceland, Egypt, everything around the world. But, when you're doing when you're in headliner on a cruise ship and you're a passenger, what happens? In most cases, you have passenger status. So you're not a crew member. So you're doing 2 shows a week, 2 nights a week out of a 7-day cruise maybe. And the rest of the time you're a passenger. But, what is there to do after? So, people say, oh, you were in Aruba last Tuesday. You're so lucky. Yeah, I was there Thursday before that. And then, it's different when you're doing it all the time. But I started, drinking, I started smoking, I started going through, eating way too much and, partying with everyone. And finally I decided I got to get off these ships because this is not getting me where I want to go either. So, I haven't done a ship in a while. I just decided that's it with that. But it leads me up to the point where I had tailbone surgery. And the doctor did this surgery and ended up making a mistake, created this problem. So it left me in severe pain. It was the worst, and I couldn't sit down. You couldn't stand up. You couldn't, sit in the bathtub. It was horrible. So he put me on Vicodin. So he had me on that, and they were trying to fix that problem. And in the middle of all of this, I'm performing. And it's intermission, and I pass out, and I they get me to the hospital, and my hemoglobin in my blood was, I forget the level, but it was somewhere very low, like a 3, and which is supposed to be a 20 or whatever for a man. And they said, we don't even understand how you are able to be walking around, so something is wrong. And they, we're going to run some tests. It could be this, it could be that. And so one of the things the doctor mentioned was lymphoma. So I went and looked it up. And of course, immediately I realized I had every single symptom from the night sweats to I went down the list. So I knew, and I braced myself. I knew that was going to be the prognosis. So I had that pretty much ready, right? My mom was on a cruise at the time. There was literally no one around me, but, I knew this was about to, to come down. And so I was bracing myself for that. And of course, then the doctor calls and tells me, yeah, that is what it is. And so they scheduled a bunch of tests, and I have horrible veins. My veins have always been so bad. So getting an IV in is always difficult. So they decide they're going to put in a PICC line, which is, a direct line into your chest. It's hanging out of my arm for a year. I had to wrap it in cellophane when I took a shower and stuff like that. But that was how the chemo was going to go in. So that's when I really, really started going into the power of the mind. And I knew there had to be something else. I remembered these flashes. I remembered, being pushed in certain directions. And I remembered those times that I had that feeling of connection, like there was more, but I just couldn't access it. So all of that was going on. And they scheduled me for a bone marrow test. And if you've ever had one, I apologize. And if you are very lucky, because it is the most intensely painful thing I have ever had in my life. They have to go in, to the inside the bone and then remove the bone marrow. You think it's bad when the needle goes in, but when they're pulling out the bone marrow, it's worse. And then they got to chip a piece of the bone off. And so, they're playing new age music and trying to get you, they can't give you any sort of pain medication. So it's literally torture. So, but in all of that, I had been learning about meditation and about the mind. And so I was able to get through that whole ordeal pretty well. I never missed a show, and I've talked about this before, but there are shows I've done that are video. There's a TV spot I did where I was driving a car blindfolded, and I had had chemo the day before. So I remember, throwing up in the bushes. I watched that video and I used to get instantly sick watching it just from the feel, because remembering, because that's how strong the mental connection is. But didn't miss a show and got through that, started really my meditation practice and got me through that problem. So I used the techniques that I was learning to get through the chemo. Never missed a show, but besides my family, my mom and my aunts and things, nobody really knew. I mean, it wasn't something I, was putting out there again, because I thought, you think it's a weakness, a sign of weakness, or that you won't be able to get, work as an entertainer if people think, so all these things are going through your head at the time. So back then I was controlled by my emotions, completely controlled. So I could have a great week where I'd get things under control. And I felt like, wow, everything is aligning and I'm riding the wave, or I'm in the zone. And, it's absolutely a real thing. When I'm in the zone, I know it. And everything moves exactly like I need it to. It feels like you are in control and getting into that zone. But when I was in that, everything was great. But one little thing could happen and my emotions would take over and everything would spiral out of control. And that happened to me over and over and over, an endless loop. It's like we talk about looping. I mean, this is looping on a massive scale here. So, it makes me think of, and again, I'm not editing this, I'm just talking. So it makes me think of, my dad in my mind saying, about the real man and emotions and that sort of thing. So you always think like, you want to be strong and you want to, you have that ingrained in you too. And even now I can hear that. And I still hear him at certain points. It's very, that, I always come up against thoughts of the past. My dad and I had a great relationship sometimes and sometimes not, but it, just as much my fault. We were very, very similar. And I think that's why, my dad was the kind of guy who was everybody's friend. I mean, my dad's funeral, there were thousands of people at his funeral. Everybody loved him and he was that kind of person where he'd go in a room and, everyone came around him. He was funny and he was charismatic and everything else. And I think I resented that as a kid or something. And, so I was always trying to do the opposite of what he wanted me to do, just to be a kid, I guess. But, that's when we butted heads, when, we were so similar to each other. But I hear his voice come up in my head a lot, when I'm facing certain things. But everything, it was the perfect storm of everything. Everything was happening, and because I was controlled by my emotions. So I go back, I get through the chemo and everything, cancer, everything, we get rid of that finally. But this tailbone problem had been going on in the meantime. And they had to stop chemo, and then I go to the hospital and they had to restart chemo. And so they're giving me, Vicodin and all these pain medications and Dilaudid, and they're giving me, stronger and stronger and stronger pain meds to balance the pain out and everything else. And then they put me on Xanax to I don't know what, for anxiety, I guess, because like I said, I've always had that huge problem with anxiety, but wow, that storm of events made my anxiety through the roof. And I remember once driving the car in the middle of the daytime and all of a sudden waking up and it was pitch black. And I mean, didn't know what the hell had happened. And I realized I got out of the car and I was in the middle of a cornfield. It was still daytime, but I had literally passed out driving and drove the car, luckily not into a ditch or into somebody else, but into a cornfield where it just stalled out. And because, the corn's high and was around the windows, it wasn't dark, but I was in this car. So I was realizing, well, I am in a situation here, all these things are happening and I'm drinking a little more. I'm drinking vodka. Then I'm trying to self-medicate. I'm in pain. Perfect storm of things. I'm still working though. I'm still going out. I'm still doing shows. And probably not my best shows, with that going on. But so finally we get the tailbone problem fixed and that's done. So I'm working on a cruise and I go to refill my prescription for Vicodin. on the day off. I'm about to do a 10-day cruise, and I'm almost out. And the the pharmacist wouldn't fill the prescription. She said, in the last 9 months, you've taken 5,500 Vicodin or something. And, I'm thinking, wait, this is prescribed by the doctor, well, and what do you mean? And like most people do. But she said, you're going to kill yourself, your liver, you're going to kill, my God, you've taken so much Vicodin. So I get in touch with my doctor. We go back and forth. Finally, he gives me a week's worth of pills, or makes her give me a week's worth of pills, so I can do this week on the cruise ship. Now he's telling me, there's no way you're going to be able to get off. I said, what is it going to take to get off of this? And he said, well, my God, you've got to, you're going to need help, and you can't do this. I said, what is it going to take? And he said, well, it's going to be horrible, and you need to taper down. And I said, I don't have time for that, and I had a couple of weeks off after this. So he said, well, you're going to need at least 10 days. So I finished the cruise, dumped the rest of the pills. I went home, locked myself away for 2 weeks, and went through hell. But that was it. I mean, I had to do it. And it's one of the best things I ever did, because from all of that comes immense strength from that, because, man, you think your mind, you talk about your mind being your enemy, in a situation like that, your mind's going to crush you. You're in the battle of your life against everything that happened to you in your past, everything you're afraid of in the future, and your mind is controlling it, showing you, why you're a rotten person. You have to remember, your mind knows everything about you. There's things that people don't know. Your wife, your boyfriend, your husband, your parents, whoever doesn't know. There are things you've done you're guilty of, you feel guilty for, but nobody knows except your mind, except you. So they will, of course, use that. Your mind will use that against you to show you what a bad person you are and that sort of thing. So I went through that, but I finally got off of it. And through that transformation, as I'm going through that and I'm meditating and I'm learning more, I'm going through that, all of a sudden I'm getting clarity, because now there isn't Vicodin in my system. There's not alcohol in my system. There's not Xanax in my system. All of these things, for the first time in several years, I'm becoming crystal clear on everything, because I'm starting to get clarity back, and I'm starting to realize, where I was, and how, dealing with my problems from that place was never going to be good. So I came out on the other side of that. That was 15 years ago, something like that now. As I look back on all of that, I look back on my life and everything I've done, I could clearly see that there was a roadmap laid out in front of me. And anytime I strayed off of it, I got in big trouble. But anytime I had those flashes, or I felt that movement or a slight push, and I went that way, because eventually I would go that way. I'd fall off, I'd go down, I'd get in some problem, but I would end up going where I was being pushed to in the first place. Just took me a lot longer to get there. I was falling for all these roadblocks that were in my way. So I was seeing there was a roadmap laid out in front of me. But, I had so many course corrections and things that it was taking me a little longer to get there. So I started being really successful as far as shows. And I was doing, hundreds of shows a year all over the world, some of the biggest clients. I've worked for, I say it all the time, but a lot of famous people and a lot of presidents, prime ministers, and all over the world, and athletes and celebrities. But the thing that was amazing about that is I got to tour the world, do the thing that I love to do, but I also got to learn all about how they became successful and what mind tricks they use and what they understand about mind power, and how they can tap into parts of their mind that most people can't, or that most people don't want to. So I was being paid to go all over the world and perform, but at the same time, I was able to learn all these different ways that people were using their mind power, and learning from different teachers, and about more about meditation and what to do. And so what I was able to do was find out all these things, figure out what worked for me, let the other stuff go. find out more things, try them out, figure out what works for me, let the other stuff go. And I was able to do that for years and years and years. I mean, I got the best education ever, and I got paid to do it, you know? So, I mean, I spent some time in Tibet. I spent some time once with a monk who chanted, they chanted all day long, but he was doing for real what I was doing on stage. He was able to say, think of a word, you think of a word, he tells you the word, not a trick. You know, he tells me, when you realize that we're all connected, you know, that sort of thing is no longer an impossibility, because we're all connected to a web of energy in the universe. And so plucking a thought from one mind to another is nothing. I mean, we are one giant consciousness. And I saw it for real. And I do this for a living. So I was blown away. And of course, you think right away, there's something, but it's not. There is something else happening out there that we think with reality. Because like I've said in many videos, this is not reality that you're seeing. This is your reality that is through the lens of your past. Because you are always got emotions and choices in your past figuring into what's happening right now. You're seeing things through a lens. If you saw a car that looked like your ex's car, immediately that would make you feel a certain way, right? You're doing that to yourself. It's not coming from the outside world. So I talked a little bit about the stress, because I felt so much overwhelming stress 24/7, a feeling, a yearning, something that I needed to do, but didn't know what. So that made it even worse, because at least if you knew what the goal was, you could be working towards it. But no matter what I did, I never felt accomplished. And I don't mean accomplished in a financial way. I mean just a feeling of accomplishment, like I had achieved something that I wanted to achieve, even though seemingly I was. So I remember that day standing in the foyer of this big house in California and not feeling anything, not feeling happy, not feeling nothing. And I realized at that point, I had been following one of the paths I've been following, you need to be rich to be, to make your dreams come true, wasn't working for me. The money, all that was great. It's great to have the security. But when you have that as the basis of your life, and that's going to make you happy, and then realizing it's not, you've got to figure out what it is that's going to make you happy, where the passion is going to come from. So I took all the lessons I learned all over the world, all these different leaders, and I started doing them. And I started to do a week of this and a week of that, and I would try this and I would try that. And every time, and I kid you not, I would be at a certain place and I would feel like I was hitting a roadblock, a new teacher would appear. It's like that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Every time I needed work on something, boom, right? I wanted to do transcendental meditation, but I didn't know where, boom. It was like people started appearing, right? It's just like somebody wrote a movie and they were exactly on cue. So I was able to take what worked, get rid of the rest. Take what worked, get rid of the rest. Put these pieces together for me and start building my own routines and my own ways to get into my subconscious, and taking what worked for others, taking what worked for me, putting them together, and creating a way to live that made the stress go away. And I remember that night standing on that foyer, looking at the stairway, looking at the chandelier there, and everything changed. That was the big catalyst. Now, even though I'd gone through cancer and I'd gone through all this crap with Vicodin, and I've got, and I was smoking, and slowly I was letting that go. I haven't had a drink in years and years, and I haven't had a cigarette in years and years. And one by one, I let those things go. But everything changed that night, because as I went around the world then from that point on, my goal was to learn everything I could about the mind. It was no longer about doing a show and learning about the mind in my downtime. It was almost the other way around. I had to do the show to get there, but all of my time besides the show was consumed with learning and education about the mind. So I had the honor of performing for the most successful people ever, and I got to talk to them about their views on how they made it, their advice. Spent time with spiritual teachers. Like I said before, I went to Sedona, Arizona, and I did a retreat. I did a vision quest in Joshua Tree where I drank and whatever that, and it was a memorable evening to say the least. And you start saying all this stuff. But that's really where my meditation practice solidified, because I took all those pieces, put them together for myself. And with meditation, I started moving forward. And all of the old me and all of those problems started to fall away. As soon as I was confronted with the real me and the ego versus, the consciousness that's looking at everything. And I didn't like what I saw at all. Like I said, I had been consumed with myself. And that's how it is. I mean, anybody who becomes an entertainer, look what you're doing. You're putting yourself on a stage and saying, look at me. Please look at me. Give me applause. Give me applause. Give me a standing ovation. Obviously, something's wrong with you to begin with. That's why we're out there doing that. We need that applause. But that ego, which I always took as was a badge of honor for me, was actually the other. It wasn't, it was actually one of my weaknesses that kept me from being able to move forward. The need for money, the stress, the deep longing for something went away with that realization. As soon as something like that comes to light, it doesn't have power over you anymore. And I realized, you've been chasing the wrong thing your entire life. But I knew right away what the correct path was. I had been being pushed to it all along. So I'm going to tell you the story. And I had toyed with not even telling this, but I'm going to tell it, because I'm going to tell the story of something that happened to me a while back that really solidified things for me. So I was meditating. I might have told this on another video, I'm not sure, but I was meditating in the living room at my house. And in the middle of meditation, a voice as clear as day said to me, you've got to stop holding on so tight. Hold on, but don't hold on so tight. And, I'm completely don't know what's going on, but I have this feeling inside that is unlike anything I've ever felt before. So all of a sudden, the TV was on, a big screen TV, 60-inch TV goes off. I hear the TV go off. I open my eyes. In that moment, well, the TV has never worked since. Whatever happened to the TV that night, in that energy, it never has worked. It's nobody can figure out what's wrong with it. We just had to get rid of it finally. But that advice was fantastic advice, because it was so true. When I started to loosen my grip, you can still hold on. You just hold on loosely, like the song. It's true. Everything started changing. So all the things I'd done over the years, quitting smoking, quitting drinking, quitting Vicodin, going through that, getting through cancer, chemo, all of that, got me to the point where I realized, okay, the money focus is wrong, but also the focus of me on stage that was wrong too. And for the last few years before that, I had felt that, it used to be, I had such a rush going out, and then it became more of a job and more of a, and it was never that before. And it just wasn't thrilling anymore. 1,000 people standing up used to, that's like drugs to a drug addict. That's what an entertainer lives for. But there was just the moments that was just like, why am I doing this? There is, besides making people entertained or happy for, 90 minutes, what is coming from this after? What's going to be the thing that you were remembered for? What's going to be the thing that you've done that impact the world to make it better? Going out there and, being a dancing bear, that's not impacting the world. And I felt that. So I started moving into first motivational speaking and teaching my, the story and how I came to this point. And then I started doing seminars and trainings and that sort of thing. And I had moved into that area, and then COVID-19 happened. And it was, again, something that, it gave me the opportunity to, figure out exactly what I wanted to do, finish up over here, get myself on the path I wanted to do. It was another one of those moments for me when I realized this is what I want to do. This is where the passion is. I still want to be on stage and I still want to be connecting with people, but I want to be connecting by helping them and giving them a message and telling them that, things are not like they think. Things are not as difficult as they think. And that, a lot of this prison that you're in is self-imposed, and you have the key to that. And that realization was so big for me. And it refueled my passion, because all those years, I wanted to be an entertainer of some sort. I didn't know what. I never felt comfortable in any one of those roles. But that was the thing. I realized it had brought me to this. It had given me all the skills for this. My entire career has brought me to this point, because everything I've done all over the world and everything I've learned all over the world, meeting this mindset that was awakened in me, created this new me, where now the stress is gone. It's been gone for a while, but I used to be afraid it would come back, and then that would create a little bit of stress. But even that is gone. And of all the things I've done, as far as with myself, helping myself, quitting smoking, drinking, that's the thing that I'm the proudest of, and that means the most to me, because I've had that since I was a kid, being stressed out all the time, waking up in the middle of the night, stressed out, not knowing why. And to not have that is huge. I mean, that's one of the biggest things for me. So I stopped making it all about me, and I started looking back, and, again, as an entertainer, of course, you're in all the publicity, and it's when you start believing your publicity that you're in trouble. All those PR stunts and things like that. When you start to believe that is, can be very, very bad. So I couldn't look outside of myself before that, but everything came together. And so I decided to start imparting this, and it is wisdom, because I'm not saying it because it's coming from me. It's what I learned from everybody else. And I only took the things, the pieces of wisdom that did work for me, So I met amazing teachers along the way. And one of the people I want to say hello to, and I don't know if he's watching this, because again, it's a long video, but John Atkinson is out there. And I met him and his beautiful wife on a cruise, and he came on several cruises, and fantastic guy. Very successful businessman in Australia. And we've stayed in touch all these years, and we met years and years ago, but we always stay in touch, on social media and stuff. And he started noticing, the way my posts were going. And he noticed the pivot I was making and what I was finding passion in now. And he messaged me and he said, you have to meet a friend of mine. And, his friend was Catherine Taylor. And Catherine is a very successful life coach, success coach in Australia. And again, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And that was the absolute truth. Catherine appeared. And Catherine is inspirational, and her teaching is so down to earth. Catherine, Michael Singer, people like that, you can connect to, and you can understand, and you feel what they're teaching in your heart. You just feel like I've known this all my life. I just need to be reminded of it. You feel like it's something inside you, because it's being reawakened inside you. So Catherine came into my life. We started talking. We realized we had so much in common as far as, what we believe in and our focuses and that sort of thing. So we partnered together, and that's why we're here now. Because even though, and I say this all the time, but how amazing is it that we're in a worldwide pandemic? There's so much crap going on, right? I'm sitting here in the best place I've ever been as far as myself, mentally, physically, spiritually, in myself, in the middle of this, because I'm not allowing myself to be pulled into it, which is what happens so much in everything, politics even, politics especially. But, and Catherine said to me, because that was still something lingering about politics. And, any of those things you have to realize are, the worldly things that are, you need to separate yourself from and look as an observer. This is happening. Not in, as soon as you get involved in it, you get sucked into it. You become part of the past, the future, the problems, and everything. You no longer can have your focus anymore. I don't know if I explained that well, but that's exactly how it works. You know, we get so involved in stupid crap that means nothing and that will mean nothing in the long run, and it runs our lives, because it's creating our thought patterns and our belief systems, and we don't even know it because it's ingrained inside of us. So I made that pivot, started the teaching, the seminars, and again, it was another nudge from the universe, because I realized that is what I want to do. You know, what I did before, I love, and I still do, and but it's no longer the thing that I'm going to be doing. You know, as we move into the future, I'm so passionate, and I'm passionate about mixing, a little of the show with the messages and putting them together and creating a hybrid kind of thing, and the online teaching. And I have a lot of corporate clients, and Catherine and I teaching those employees, how to use their mind to better their lives. And that's really what it comes down to, because what it comes down to is this: I don't care what you want, what you think you want. You can say you want $100 billion, you want the hottest wife in the world, and what you want is to be happy. That is what we all want. So no matter what you're hiding that behind as you're reasoning, that is what you want. So cut out all of the extra crap, because I spent years chasing money because I thought that's what I wanted, right? It wasn't. I wanted the feeling I thought I was going to have, right? Of course, you want financial freedom. You want to be able to pay all your bills and all of that. But beyond, to be, worth 20 million, 50 million, 100, whatever it is, going up from that point, it's not going to make you any happier. When your needs are met, you're able to do things for your loved ones. You're able to help your community, whatever it is, you're happy, but you don't get happier and happier. And the stress starts to grow as the money becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. Anyway, so I asked myself the question, how do I serve? What do I do? Because I want to leave something. I don't want to just be, some forgotten entertainer, because I'm never going to be, somebody like Rickles or somebody like Johnny Carson or somebody that people are going to remember forever, but you want to leave something, and you're not going to do that as an act, So I thought, well, how can I use the unique talents that I have to benefit, my fellow beings? So, and like I said, that's why I'm here. That's what got me here. All of that training I did, years and years and years on the road, all the people I met and everything that I went through and all the problems that I had and everything that I tried and that failed and everything that I tried and that worked and everything I did as I moved forward brought me here. And that is why we do this. So I just want you to know that if you are stuck, it's only a window. It's only a roadblock. It's not the end of the story. I was stuck so many times. And sometimes you got to open the window and you crawl out. Sometimes you got to kick it open but you can always find a way. You're never at the end of your story until you're literally at the end of your story. You can always change the way things are going. If this is a movie of your life, you're the writer, you're the director, you're the star, you're the producer. You can change the script, you can change the ending, you can do anything you want. You're in complete control. And when you realize that you have the power inside you to make every change you ever want to make. When you realize that moment, that day, you're halfway there, because you've awoken to the fact that there's more, and there's more inside you, and we're not insignificant, and that we're all connected, and that there's a reason that we're here, and that there's a universal energy and power that flows through us. But we only have so much inside of each one of us, and we use it to do all kinds of stupid tasks. And we use that power to hold down stupid thoughts and stupid emotions and stupid past mistakes and crap that would be better off vanquished from our life. But we use that life force energy to hold those things inside of us. And one by one, as they come out, you take that energy, and I say it every day, and you focus on the stuff that matters. And that's how you make lasting change. You're not stuck where you are. There is more. I've seen it. I see it. I chase it. I find it every day. You know, I'm not saying 24/7 I'm living in bliss yet, but it's every day. I mean, every single day, big stretches of time. And even when I'm not stressed. What I'm doing is trying to get back in that state, because when you're in the zone, everything happens correctly. Everything works. Everything you do turns to gold. You just feel like you're a conductor and you're conducting everything, and it's almost like things are moving in slow motion. And it doesn't matter what you believe. This isn't religion. You know, it doesn't matter what you believe, because what you believe is fine. Whether you believe in God or you believe in source or you believe whatever it is, that it's the energy, it's all the same thing. It is a real thing. Life is not like you think. You can make any change you want, and you can start right now. It's as easy as that. That's my story. That's how I got here. That's why I do this. So I'm going to leave this video up, unedited, like I promised at the beginning. And if you have any questions, you can drop them down below. Don't forget, if you're not a member yet, to join our Facebook group, because every day I'm doing a Facebook Live. Catherine and I are answering questions or making posts. There is tons of free resources and information in that Facebook group. So we want you to go in, take a look, invite your friends and family. It's facebook.com/groups/taylor-webb. That is our Facebook group, our Facebook community, because that's what it is. And down below here, you're going to see our website, freelifetools.com. And also on that site, you'll find a page called Free Resources. And in that page, we've got tons of reports and videos and all sorts of free resources to help you on your journey, because that's what we're here to do. Don't make the mistakes I made. Don't make the mistakes Catherine made. Learn from what we learned and learn from the most successful people in the world. You know, I am so lucky that I had that opportunity. Where else could you do that and get paid to do it? That's what happened to me. And Catherine has worked with giants in the field. And with what we have learned, we've created a way that you can take the advice, use it like a building block to the next step, to the next, to the next, and you will reach your goals. The area, the space between where you are and where you want to be is a couple of inches, because it's right here. And you can change. You just need the direction, you need the instruction, and that's why we're here. So if you made it all the way through this, congratulations. If you didn't, that's okay too. This was part of the process. You know, I said yesterday, I'm doing with some friends from our different businesses. We're doing all doing this, you know, and I think just being honest about yourself, laying out your story, I think that's important. So that's why I did it today. So I want to thank you for watching, and I will see you very soon.